That's a Falun Gong practitioner being electrocuted with 300,000-volt batons by Chinese regime thugs who are in flagrant violation of international humanitarian law. Falun Gong do meditative exercises and live by the moral principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. Chinese regime used to praise Falun Gong for its health benefits. Chinese so-called officials and everyone was doing it. There were 70 million members, but the bad Chinese regime considers that a threat to their rule. So they banned Falun Gong. They're being arrested, beaten, and tortured, like force feeding, forced commitment to psychiatric facilities, and sexual abuse. Millions of Falun Gong that never committed a crime detained for years, no hearings, no appeals, and forced into slave labor. Even worse, the Chinese regime is stealing their body organs while they're alive, which kills them in the process, so the Chinese regime can steal their organs, sell their organs, so they can make money. China's hospitals are doing large-scale organ harvesting from unwilling political prisoners, has murdered 1 million Chinese prisoners of conscience. 1 million murdered is genocide. Jinping Xi's China is killing prisoners of conscience for their organs is the greatest crime against humanity of the 21st century. Warning! China's violating global organ transplantation laws. China's organ procurement program has a massive pool of living donors they keep on standby to be killed on demand. Horrible, flagrant violation. Lungs go for $150,000. Heart sells for $130,000. The Chinese regime's organ trafficking business has been a multi-billion-dollar cash cow for Chinese officials. No other government on earth harvests organs from their non-consenting citizens to make a profit. Just Chinese officials getting rich off of China's people's organs. Shame, Chinese regime. Shame on you for introducing humanity to a new evil on earth. Huang Jiefu, director of China's Organ Commission, should be a persona non grata in the United States, should be denied a visa to enter the U.S. for violating international principles of organ transplantation laws. Same with Dr. Zheng Shu-sen for doing forced organ harvesting. Deny them visas, President Trump. Tell China publicly, Mr. President. World wants China to stop stealing prisoners of conscience organs. Get the useless UN to create a COI, a commission of inquiry. Need an international criminal investigation of China for their crimes against humanity. Sanction those responsible, Jinping Xi. End the persecution and slaughter of Falun Gong. Stop violating global organ transplantation laws. Every country end transplant tourism to China. Ban your citizens from going to China to get an organ from a non-consenting Chinese prisoner of conscience. Christians are also having their organs stolen from them. Chinese officials are harvesting organs from house Christians. Chinese regime considers Christianity a threat to their rule, so they declared war against Christianity. The Chinese regime's church cross demolition campaign has removed 1,200 crosses from churches and bulldozed 50 churches. Clear violation of religious freedom laws guaranteed in China's constitution, which says there's religious freedom. But it's a lie. There's no religious freedom in China. If Christians meet U.S. diplomats at an American embassy in China to complain about the Chinese regime's repression of the Christian faith, they go to jail. If Christians conduct services in their own home, they go to prison. Pastor Bo Guohua was sentenced to 14 years in prison. His wife sentenced to 12 years in prison for refusing the regime's order to remove the church's crosses. There are hundreds of innocent Christians that never committed a crime in Chinese regime's jails. Protestant clergy are appointed by the Chinese regime, not by the congregants. Catholic clergy appointed by Chinese anti-religious regime, not the Vatican. The Chinese regime issued an ultimatum to parents: if their children don't stop attending church, they'll be barred from attending college. The Chinese regime prevents children under 18 from receiving any Christian education. Communist Party General Secretary Jinping Xi, end your war against China's evangelical and Catholic communities. Stop bulldozing China's churches and ruining these people's lives. And stop violating China's constitution. Allow real religious freedom in China. President Trump sanctioned Zhejiang Province Communist Party boss Sha Bolong. He should be a persona non grata in the U.S. for leading a campaign against Christian groups. Put him on visa denied list. Chinese human rights lawyers are also being arrested. 250 Chinese rights defense attorneys have been rounded up by the Chinese regime for defending victims of the Chinese regime's injustices just within the last year. If Chinese human rights lawyers represent a Christian or a member of Falun Gong or a democracy advocate, they go to jail. Lawyer Zhang Tianyang met imprisoned lawyer Xi Yang's wife. They put him in jail just for meeting the wife of an imprisoned lawyer. Chinese regime uses the 300,000-volt baton against lawyers, which violates global human rights laws because there's no rule of law in China. The great Gao Jisheng, once among China's top 10 lawyers, but he defended victims of the Chinese regime's abuses. So they took away his law license, closed his law firm, been torturing him in jail for 10 years. Even though this amazing man never committed any crime. He's called the conscience of China. God bless you, Mr. Gao, for exposing the Chinese regime's injustices. Great man. Lawyer Guo Fishang, he's next. Sentenced to 6 years. Denied medical treatment. He should be coming up. There he is. Denied medical treatment. Denied access to his family and lawyers, which violates China's detention center regulations and violates the United Nations Committee Against Torture laws. Zhou Shifeng, Wang Yu, Pu Jicheng, Xi Lang, Li Herping, Wang Tranjiang, to all of China's human rights lawyers in jail right now. You are not forgotten. You're amazing, special people. To the global community, stop ignoring Chinese lawyers' enforced disappearance by the Chinese regime. It violates global humanitarian law. That China's a signatory of. China's legal system is designed to serve the Communist Party, not the people. No courts in China uphold justice because there's no independent judiciary in China. No rule of law in China. General Secretary Xi, stop casting human rights lawyers as enemies. Allow China's lawyers to elect officials for a new Beijing Bar Association. Stop influencing China's judicial process. Allow independent judiciary in China. World wants a special rapporteur to monitor human rights in China. Get the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to assign a permanent staff monitor to monitor human rights in China. Publishers and journalists are also jailed in China because there's no media freedom in China, no independent reporting in China. If an investigative journalist writes about labor unrest or about corruption or about a chemical plant explosion, they go to jail. It's a one-of-a-kind Chinese regime anti-truth campaign. Tell the truth, you go to jail. News gets stopped on political grounds, even if it's true. Chinese regimes run news media serves the people, serves the Chinese regime, not the people. China's constitution says there's free speech in China. That's a lie. There's no free speech in China, no free press in China, no free association in China, no free assembly in China, no independent unions in China. Chinese people can't speak freely about political reform even in their own homes. If they do and get caught, they go to jail. Chinese talk about democracy, freedom, or even express a different opinion than the Chinese regime, they go to jail, like Lu Gengsang published pro-democracy essays on overseas websites about China's Democracy Party. They sentenced him to 11 years in jail. The special, phenomenal Liu Xiaobo wrote about freedom and human rights in China, sentenced him to 11 years in jail. They knew he had cancer, and they didn't let him out to receive treatment. He died while in custody. Down with the Communist Party of China. China's holding hundreds of bloggers, writers, and journalists in jail. China's the world's #1 jailer of journalists. Chinese government treats literature as poison, treats free speech as a crime, treats independent thinking as their enemy. Out of 1.4 billion people, not one newspaper can express objective views. Not one TV station can broadcast objective programs. The Chinese regime's managed news media is media malpractice. Curbing dissemination of ideas violates basic human rights. Jinping Xi, stop jailing citizen journalists. Stop arresting information activists. President Trump, China doesn't safeguard the legal rights of foreign news organizations and foreign correspondents that report in China. So you should withhold visas for Chinese journalists if China continues to not issue visas to American journalists and news organizations. The Chinese regime's Great Internet Firewall, which blocks China's people's access to online information outside of China, is the most repressive internet censorship in the world. Chinese regime censorship ranks last of 65 nations in internet freedom, even worse than North Korea. Type in Dalai Lama into China's Great Firewall search engine, nothing comes up. Type in June 4th, 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, search not found, because there's no internet freedom in China. No internet freedom in China. There's hundreds of words blocked on China's internet. New York Times banned. Time Magazine, Economist Magazine, banned. Bloomberg News and Reuters, all banned. Facebook banned. Twitter banned. No YouTube. No Google. No Gmail. All blocked in China. General Secretary Xi, stop blocking internet freedom. It's a universal right. It's the will of China's people to have independent internet. China's censored internet needs more freedom, not less. Stop being a threat to the World Wide Web. Stop spreading China's anti-freedom tentacles to undermine the world's open internet. President Trump banned the Chinese regime's newspapers in the U.S., banned WeChat in the U.S., and sanctioned Xu Lin, head of China's cyberspace administration, for being the enemy of global internet freedom. He should be a persona non grata. Deny Xu Lin a visa, President Trump. Tear down China's Great Internet Firewall, Mr. President. The beautiful country of Taiwan doesn't want to have anything to do with China's anti-freedom Marxist-Leninist regime. During the Republic of Taiwan's free and fair elections, Taiwanese chose Tsai Ing-wen of the Democratic Progressive Party to be Taiwan's president. Taiwanese hate China's anti-democratic dictators. Taiwanese love their free speech, free press, independent judiciary, and rule of law. Taiwanese don't want China taking that away from them. Jinping, she says, Taiwan's people want to be ruled by China. That's a lie. Last thing Taiwan's people want is to be ruled by China. China's the biggest threat to Taiwan's way of life. Taiwan's been a sovereign, self-governing, freely elected, normal, independent, democratic country for decades, opposite China's one-party, authoritarian dictatorship. Taiwan is not a part of China. One more time, Taiwan is not a part of China. There's one China, one Taiwan, two different countries. Taiwan's democracy shines as a beacon to China's people. Taiwan's freedoms have won the hearts and minds of China's people. Taiwan's a model for China's future democratic development. All Chinese people want democracy, freedom, human rights, and rule of law. Common sense. Come on. A quick shout out to the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives for passing the Taiwan Travel Act that will now allow visits between U.S. and Taiwanese officials. Thank you, Donald J. Trump, for making this happen. It was ridiculous that Taiwan's democratically, freely elected officials couldn't participate in formal diplomatic meetings. China's anti-freedom regime officials should be the ones not allowed to participate in formal diplomatic meetings. President Trump, meet in person with Taiwan's democratically elected president, Tsai Ing-wen. Make Taiwan a full participant in all global organizations. Admit Taiwan into the United Nations. Make Kissinger's mistake right. UN membership for Taiwan. Do the right thing. End the one China fiction. Long live Taiwan's Democratic Progressive Party. May the Republic of Taiwan's democracy endure 10,000 years. And sell Taiwan F-35 jet fighters and submarines so Taiwanese can defend themselves against their enemy, the Communist Party of China. Blech. Hong Kong. Hong Kongers, like Taiwanese, love their freedoms, which Hong Kongers were promised they'd have until 2047. But the Chinese regime lied, as usual. In 1997, England handed over Hong Kong to China, who guaranteed Hong Kongers could keep their British legal rules-based political system, which is enshrined in the 1984 Sino-British Treaty, also known as Hong Kong's Constitution. Now, instead of letting Hong Kong's high standards of governance, like the rule of law, spread to mainland China, China's taking away Hong Kong's civil liberties. It's why Hong Kongers protested for 3 months. Chinese regime blames the United States for Hong Kongers protesting. Chinese dictators should place the blame where it belongs, on themselves, for lying to Hong Kong's people and for lying to the world that Hong Kongers would be allowed to choose whom they want to be ruled by. I pledge allegiance to the Hong Kong nation because China's a millstone around Hong Kong's people's neck. China's an albatross around Hong Kong's people's necks. General Secretary Xi, stop violating Hong Kong's constitution. Keep China's promise to allow Hong Kongers to choose their candidate for chief executive. China has no respect for any country's rule of law. The Chinese regime's Marxist, Leninist political philosophy is not appealing at all. The Chinese regime's anti-rule of law political system is the pits. China's autocratic regime doesn't provide an attractive political system. It's common sense, right? Communist Party of China's political philosophy is a clear and present danger to every freedom-loving country on earth. China's inferior political system is not admired by anyone, especially by China's people who are unhappy under China's corrupt, one-party police state, flawed political system. They're a scourge to civil societies worldwide. Chinese regime is a menace to every country's society. To China's people, rise up. Stop being slaves of the Communist Party of China. Unite and free China. Unite and rid Earth of the Chinese Communist Party. Chinese Communist regime belongs in the dustbin of history. Should be in a wing of a museum for evil dictatorships, because they're the enemy of democracy. They're the enemy of freedoms. They're the enemy of the universal value of human rights. China's Marxist, Leninist ideology is the enemy of our civil liberties. Their anti-freedom, poisonous political philosophy is the biggest threat to every country's democracy. Bad enough China's people have to live under the Chinese Communist regime's repressive political system. Even worse, Jinping Xi, this nasty anti-freedom so-called person, is exporting his anti-democratic ideals globally. Chinese regime is undermining Cambodia's democracy, Nepal's democracy, Vietnam's democracy, Thailand's democracy, the Maldives' democracy, Zimbabwe's democracy, Sudan's democracy, every country's democracy, Cuba's democracy. Chinese regime destabilizing Venezuela's democracy. 140 Venezuelans have been shot to death while peacefully protesting for democracy. They're literally dying for democracy because Venezuelans think democracy is worth dying for. Venezuelans' desire for democracy is admirable and inspirational. Every country should have democratic constitutionalism because that's what's best for their people. But China's communist regime, make me nauseous, is doing the opposite by exporting their anti-civil rights ideology globally and spreading their anti-open society political system worldwide. China taking an axe to the world's democratic norms is why democracies have been on the decline globally for 11 years. The Chinese communist regime is causing the demise of democracies worldwide. Alarm bells should be ringing. The Chinese regime's goal is to kill democracy. Emergency alert to every country that cherishes your civil liberties. Your country's democracy is at stake. Don't take democracy for granted. Code red, sound the alarm. Death of democracy by China. No academic freedom in China. No artistic freedom. No comedy freedom. No music freedom. No filmmaking freedom. China's political system is at the bottom of the barrel. No journalism freedom in China. No information freedom. No media freedom in China. No social media freedom, no internet freedom, no publishing freedom. This is why China's political system is seriously flawed. No peaceful protest in China. No political freedoms. No personal freedoms. No travel freedoms. No trade freedom. No financial freedom. No reproductive freedom. No religious freedom. No open debate freedoms. No independent thought freedom. China's the only country that has a thought police, proving that China's inferior political system is not compatible with the rest of the world. Chinese communist regime wants to kill everything we live for. Chinese communist regime is a virus to our way of life. Do you understand? Am I coming in clear? Capiche? Hopefully you understand. Sorry I get all worked up. It's just our democracy is under threat. Anyway, United States, USA, is a pillar for freedoms. China's a pillar for anti-freedom repression. USA's democracy, freedoms, human rights are our greatest virtues. That's why everyone wants to come to the US, because USA is a beacon for democracy. China's a beacon for anti-democracy dictatorship. It's the United States' responsibility to protect our democratic allies against China. America's a force for good. China's a force for bad. China's violating World Trade Organization. China's violating World Health Organization. China's violating United Nations International Labor Organization. China's violating UN global humanitarian laws. United Nations is under siege from China. China's, like I said, violating World Trade Organization because the Chinese regime is against the standards of a civilized country. World wants liberalism, not Leninism. Move it up, Mark. It's the will of China's people to have democracy. That's the Chinese dream, democracy. And coming to America to get away from the Chinese communist oppressive regime. China's people hate the Chinese regime's one-party political system because it's a scandalous power structure that's prevented democracy, which has severely stunted every aspect of China's social development over the past 30 years. Therefore, it's the right of China's people to alter it, or even better, abolish it. Chinese citizens want higher principles than what the Communist Party is offering. They don't want the Chinese communist regime's failed authoritarianism. China's future is for the Chinese people to decide. And Chinese people desire democracy. Chinese want constitutional democracy that has checks and balances to limit Chinese communist rule. That's why United States' three branches of government, legislative, executive, and judiciary, is a superior political system because they keep each other in check. Unlike China's one-party, anti-freedom, inferior political system, it's a clash of civilizations. High-caliber, constitutional, democratic political system versus China's one-party police state dictatorship, which has been the only governing political party since 1949. It's every Chinese citizen's right and duty to help shape the future legacy of China, which is a democratic, constitutional, electoral system, by far the superior political system. Free and fair elections for all of Chinese people. That's the best political system. Chinese people want multi-party elections in China, just like the sovereign, self-governing, independent, democratic of Taiwan has. All of China's people should be allowed to register to vote. Voter participation for all of China's people need polling booths so all of China's citizens can cast their ballots and vote for who they want to be ruled by. One person, one vote for all of China's citizens in free and fair multi-party elections in China.